welcome to today's video. Thank you so much for stopping by. I'm so happy you're joining me today. Today is going to be an amazing video. It was an amazing book, a book I look forward to for months to be able to read. It's by one of my very favorite authors, Vicki James, which is a pen name for Victoria L. James. I just love her books. I just love her words. I've been so lucky to have read so many books in a row that have affected me emotionally. I opened this book and I got tears in my eyes already because I so look forward to being able to escape to her words. These were characters that we started to get to know a little bit in Cherry Beets. It is an interconnected standalone. I think that's the right terminology. You don't have to read Cherry Beets to understand this story. I would highly recommend it because I freaking love that book. And that's where you first meet Rhett and Julia. I just sit here and I have like these happy tears that are brimming to being able to talk about this book with you. This is how her books always affect me. She has very big shoes to fill. She has written my favorite male character ever. I talk about him all the time, Marcus Anderson. And Rhett, let me tell you, I wasn't so sure about Rhett. I was actually quite surprised when she said that she was going to write a book about him because I thought, okay, I know she can do it because she's amazing. But I also wondered, oh my gosh, I don't like him. So maybe this is just going to be one of those books where I like the book, but I can't really get my head around the main character. And holy smokes, did she surprise me. I am paying homage in my blazer to Julia. One thing that I often forget to mention in the videos, which is one of my very favorite things about certain authors, is a playlist. I love when authors put a playlist with their books. I feel like I get to know the author a little bit more by what they picked. I feel like I get to know the character a little bit more. It helps me connect with the story a little bit more. And this is a rock star romance, so I knew it was going to be, as always with Vic's playlist, an amazing playlist. I sat down after I finished this book for 2 days trying to wrap my head around how I was going to sit here and talk to you guys about it without breaking down in happy tears and listening to the playlist. I have to point out specifically that there's 2 songs in this playlist which really stuck out to me. The first one is Hallelujah, and this is the James Cherry, is it James Cherry version that she used? I know it's been done several times, it's been covered by many people, and I can't remember the man's name right now who wrote the original. The second song that blew me away, which I had heard many times before, is Wild Horses, and it's originally done by the Rolling Stones. The version that I love and adore and makes me think of my husband because it was released around the time we started dating was by the Sundays, and this version that Vic put in this book is by Stone Sour. I hadn't heard that version before. It fits perfectly because it's more rock and his voice is just so gritty, and it made me think of Rhett, and I sat there and I cried during that song because it embodied what I thought Rhett was. And hearing the voice, and it's a man that's singing it, and hearing the voice and knowing where they talked about in the book, oh my gosh, those 2 songs were just everything to me. I love that we got to see so much of Tessa and Presley in this book. It brought another level to how I connected with it and how much I loved it. So Dirty Rock is about Rhett and Julia. Rhett is the lead singer of Youth Gone Wild, a rock band, a very successful rock band. Julia is their publicist. I loved her in Cherry Beets. What a kick-ass chick. She's smart, she's level-headed because she's a publicist. She knows her stuff. We just see her in a professional level in Cherry Beets. And so I was surprised when Vic said that she was writing Dirty Rock, that she was going to be the other main player. She's smart, she's quick-witted, she deals with these rock stars. And let me tell you, with Rhett, no easy feat. Like I said, I didn't really like Rhett in Cherry Beets. He was the quintessential egotistical jerk, didn't like change, was focused on the band, was rude, just not very likable in my book. When you held Rhett up against Presley, there was no competition there. Presley all day long. I could not wait to see if Vic could prove me wrong. I was like, okay, let's go. Bring it on. I really did try to understand Rhett going into this book. We get a little glimpse of him as a teenager and his background at the beginning of the book. And I think I'm a pretty thoughtful person and introspective, and I really do try to understand people, characters. So I wanted to know why Rhett was the way he was. I thought that if I could wrap my head around him in the beginning, maybe that would help me like him towards the end. He likes drugs, he drinks, he likes women. Right there, I knew that he was trying to numb something and to fill a void that he had in his life. But what was that void going to be? Was he lonely? And then he said something that shined a light on where his head was at. He said, when you can have everything for nothing, you crave nothing at the cost of everything. And who's always there to clean up his mess? Julia. I wondered how, because I knew she was going to be his love interest, how the heck, after everything that she saw, how she could possibly do that. How she could possibly allow herself to be vulnerable and to fall in love with him, because that's where I thought we were going. I had to applaud her, but honestly, with what she saw, I think I'm too insecure of a person to see what she saw with him, with all the women, and how he treated women, and how he went through women, how she could ever trust him to be faithful, trust him with her heart. I just could not see that happening. He really did just see her as their publicist. He never, he flirted, with everybody, but he never even gave her a second glance until all of a sudden he did. As their story starts to unfold, we start to get a lot of Rhett. We get to know his every thought. We get to know everything that he starts feeling for Julia. And I realized about the same time that Rhett realized we weren't getting a lot of Julia. She was still pretty much a mystery. Did she just want to use him for sex? Was she starting to feel more for him? Once he realized that he was attracted to her and that he really saw her, I started to forgive him for some of his ways in a way, because he became the reformed bad boy in a lot of ways, but yet was still himself. It was like this whole other layer to him that he didn't even know existed. I so enjoyed watching that flourish and him change as a person, and yet he was still so much the same of himself. With Julia, it took a little bit longer as we started to be able to uncover her and where she was coming from and why she was the way she was. That part of her story I didn't expect at all, but it made her so much more endearing to me. I think my walls started to come down with Rhett about chapter 9, and he says something to a stripper, of all people, that made me see his heart a little bit and saw that he was changing. He says, "You're better than this. Don't let an asshole like me make you feel shitty for being beautiful." He was all ready to use her, as he had every other woman before, and yet he couldn't, because he had started to see the world through different eyes. Jules opened up a whole different lane for him, and starting to see that change in him. Yep. I adored the relationship between Rhett and Presley. I think it was always there. They always had some sort of a connection, and if Rhett respected anybody, he respected Presley. They gave each other crap constantly. But when it came to it, and Rhett needed somebody who he really didn't have to save face in front of, he went to Presley. And he also went to Presley because of Tessa. And Presley was exactly who Rhett needed as his life started to change with Jules. he called Presley and they had a conversation that I just loved. And Rhett was picking up that Tessa was with Presley and he could hear her in the background. And I love that he noticed that. And he really started to become tuned in on the other people in his life. And that conversation that he had, even though there was nothing sweet about it with Presley, to me it showed a sweetness to Rhett that was unexpected. There's a pivotal moment where Jules takes Rhett to a private club, and it's totally different than any place he's ever been, and yet she's the most free there. And it's not like, you know, when I say private club, it's not like a sex club or something. It was a music club, and it was music that he wasn't necessarily a fan of, but she was, and yet he was a musician, so he could respect it. And they spent the night there just as Jules and Rhett. It was so sexy. There was so much heat on those pages. Oh my gosh. He knew he was already falling for her. Well, did he know it? He felt it, but he hadn't really truly 100% acknowledged. He knew he was chasing her. He knew that he wanted her. But yet did he like inside say that he loved her? No. But he says something that I just adored. I couldn't stop looking at the way our fingers entwined, mine rough and blunt, while hers were delicate and soft. She felt so precious in my hold, and a wave of protectiveness washed over me. There was also a weird stirring in my lower stomach that had nothing to do with desire or sex. Hand-holding was an intimacy I never stumbled upon before, and I didn't know how the F to feel about any of it. He's so confused by it with her, but yet he's so into it. And it's one of my very favorite things is to hold hands with my husband. So when he talked about the hand-holding, oh, stop it. Rhett, what are you doing to me? Julia's making him see the world through a completely different lens. I loved it. He talks about how she makes him want to write. And he says, she makes me want to write, and I'm lyrical as rhymes with duck. I could write an entire album about her right now without coming up for air. She's inspiring him. He's growing and evolving right here on the pages in front of our eyes. There's a whole part in chapter 24 that's about the relationship between him and his mom. Oh, that was it. The way he talked about his mom and the interaction they had in that chapter. Oh my, that was it. That's when I fell in love with Rhett Ryan. There's this underlying current of Rhett feeling like Julia is hesitant. And he says, everyone has that one person, Jules. Turns out you're mine. Once he flips a switch and Julia's it for him, and he knows that. Everything, it was like a puzzle. Everything just goes into place for him. And yet he senses this hesitancy with her. I wondered the same thing that he did, which was he knew he had to prove because of his past and everything that she saw that he could be a one-woman man and that she could count on him. And I didn't know. I didn't know if she could do it because I felt everything that she felt. But I also knew and saw how he had changed and was really crossing my fingers and in parts holding my breath, wondering if they were going to be able to be together. Rhett says, Jules quirked an eyebrow and I smirked. Why are you looking at me like that? I saw you too damn late. Promised myself I'd make sure I saw you every day from now on. She blushed again. I was living for that blush. It was my favorite shade of any color to ever exist. And against her ivory skin and dark hair, it made me want to bite her cheeks. The two of us hadn't exchanged the I love yous I'd assured her existed back at BB's. But now, like this, right here, looking up at her, don't say it, Rhett, she whispered. I wasn't going to, I breathed back. Good, but you couldn't stop me if I wanted to. See, she's hesitant, and he's like, he's there. Something that Rhett did that really shined to me. And it's so crazy how a fictional story can be exactly like real life. And that's my favorite kind of love story. That is real. That could happen to any of us, and real situations in life. And there's something that happened to me in my personal life with my husband that was exactly on these pages, and I couldn't believe it. But to me, I believe in signs, and I know that, and see, I'm getting all emotional about it. I know that our loved ones that aren't with us anymore are never far from us. And it's amazing to me that I can see my loved ones in a book that I'm reading. There's a part of this book where Julia has to go to her sister, and her sister is troubled and just gone through a horrible life event. And she says something to Julia, and Julia knows she's in a low place. And she hangs up on her, and Julia freaks out. Jules and Rhett leave, and they go to find her. And Julia is terrified of what she's going to find when she walks in the door to her sister's house. And Rhett was a pillar of strength to her in that moment. And when he says to her, like, you stay here, I'm going to go, and I'll go find her in the house. My husband did that for me. And he's walking through the house, and she's standing in the same place. He took that on for her, not knowing what they were going to find. And the strength that he showed and the love that he showed for her in that moment. And that's exactly what my husband did for me. And even though the situation that we were in didn't turn out the way it did for Sarah and Julia and Rhett, it was the worst thing that happened in our situation. But my husband did that for me and for my family. And it changed him forever as a person. But he did that for me. So when Rhett did that for her. So when Rhett did that for Julia, I was a goner. Rhett will forever hold a very special place in my heart because of that. And I'm sorry I'm getting all emotional. This is a wonderful love story. I love that a book has stuff like that in it. I love that I can feel all these emotions: happiness, sadness, love, friendship. I loved everything about this book. I love that I cried sad tears. I love that I had happy tears. I love that I was completely hung over after I read this book. Let me know if you have read Dirty Rock or Cherry Beets in the comments below. I know this is a long video, so I appreciate you sticking towards the end and putting up with my tears. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today, guys. I'll see you soon. Bye.